Hi, Shen. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us today. Hi, everybody. I see everybody's coming in now. Wonderful. I'd like to introduce Shen first, and then I have some questions for him, and we'll have time for some questions from you guys too. Born and raised in Shanghai, Shen Wei is a visual artist based in New York City and Shanghai. He's known for his intimate self-portraits and portrait of others, as well as his poetic images of contemporary China. His work has been exhibited internationally, including in major museums around the U.S. and also in La Triennale di Milano and the Moscow Museum of Modern Art. Shen's work is part of many permanent collections, including the Gettys, New York MoMAs, and the Lilley. Thanks again for joining us today, Shen.
Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Good,
Yeah.
good. I wanted to start with, how are you doing during the quarantine? Are you creating work? Have you been dedicating your time to create more, or you've been relaxing more? How's that going?
I'm mostly just stay home,
Yeah.
and I have my studio right next to me, so I'm dedicate a lot of my time just doing work, mostly photography work. I have been shooting a new series for the last year, so I'm editing them. And also exploring kind of new medias, paintings and watercolor and drawings, medium that I normally don't work on. And
Uh-huh.
this is kind of a good opportunity for me to sit down and I have a lot of time to do some research and see what I would like to explore on that territory.
That's so cool. So, like all these new media that you've been exploring, did you find a new passion?
Yeah, definitely. I was trained as a painter in China. So, but when I moved to the States, I started to do photography, and I have not really painted for many years. So it is interesting process to um, starting to work on this familiar, not yet not so familiar medium. Yeah, I've been exploring different genre, different things. So
That's so cool. So like you said that you were trained as a painter and then you went into photography. Do you find, some similarities between the two mediums when you've been working on it lately?
oh yes, a lot. I think I trained as a painter when I was very young, and I started to do drawings and paintings actually very much according to the at the time the Soviet Union um, social realistic um, paintings. So it's that kind of a training. It's very technical, sort of. You really train your eye to look at color, look at light. And I think when I started doing photography, and that part of training really kind of kick in very naturally. And I definitely I think all these media have can have influence to each other.
Yeah, I was actually reading about your work, researching about you yesterday, and I really saw somebody mention that your work can be compared to like Dutch Golden Age, and I spent a lot of time with Dutch Golden Age paintings, and I worked in a museum in the Netherlands that had an amazing collection, and I really saw that similarity in your work. So you talking about light and that
Mhm.
translating into your work is it's very beautiful how you're able to create that with your photography. I wonder, are you exploring that kind of similar style in painting as well, like light and those kinds of,
Mhm.
juxtapositions?
Well, before I moved to the States, I actually never had been to a museum. I I grew up in the time where China did not have a lot of museums and did not have a collection of Western art. So the exposure to Western art is very much based on just reading textbooks and go to kind of very minimal Western art history class. And I remember the artists we were taught are those are really big name, Picasso's and Van Gogh, but you don't really see the real work. You know, you see on that little picture on the textbook. Um, so when I moved to the States for art school, I went to Minneapolis College of Art Design, which is next to a art museum. And that was the first time I saw real masterpieces in person. And over there, I discovered all these Dutch paintings and other genre and the period I did not know, and that really opened my eye and I started to fascinated by the Renaissance and the French Romanticism and especially the Dutch painting. So yes, I think when I started doing photography, all those fascination really um, influenced how I look at
Yeah.
the work. Mm-hmm.
How cool. How different. And you know, well, your work is really, really personal. You know, there is not only your self-portraits, but when you have other people in your photographs, they, you know, they're always very, very personal. And you know, you can really feel the emotional subjects that you explore in your work. So you know, like when I look at like loneliness and disconnection, nostalgia, we have this word in Portuguese. I'm from Brazil. I have this word in Portuguese. It's called saudades, which is translating is this like very melancholy but beautiful way of missing something. And I see that in your work. And I was wondering, like, how and why these things seem to reoccur in your photographs.
Um, I think that's a very complex uh, question for me to answer because I think my work is very much a reflection of my personality, and my personality evolves over the time um, and influenced by my life. So the work I did 10 years ago uh, actually is quite different as my work is now. Um, in in terms of that loneliness, I think perhaps the work I did in the last few, especially the self portraits, I think they're more reflection of the introvert part of my personality, and it's very much me because I love to be alone, and I always travel alone, and I but when I'm alone, I don't really feel lonely, you know,
Uh-huh.
and I think that's a two different thing.
Yeah.
When I'm alone, I actually find more connected to my senses, and I
Mhm.
also feel most creative when I'm alone. So, so I'm alone. But I'm very much agitated in a way. So it's um, and I also think it's very crucial for me to have that lonely time just for
Yeah.
myself to thinking through things, and you know, some of my um, ideas has always come from that alone time.
How cool. And so this time, you know, during quarantine, you must be enjoying yourself in a
Very
way.
much so. Yes, I'm doing a lot of paintings, like I said, and also just doing a lot of research, is reading books and um, I just watch videos online and finding in things that I was not interested in, and now I find it interested. Yes, I think this is an interesting time for artists, because I especially for me, because I travel a lot in the last 10 years, and most of my work is done during traveling. And this is not really my usual creative environment. I like to go places and do things. So this kind of forced me to have a different routine and find different things to explore.
That's so wonderful to hear. And you were born and raised in Shanghai, that, as I said at the beginning, to you guys that just joined us, which is a very strict and conservative environment. And how did your upbringing affect your work and your creative process?
Um, I I grew up in a pretty conservative household. My parents both are from kind of they went through Cultural Revolution, and they have a very traditional um, value, I guess. And also, I think it's very common in Asian countries that parents don't really show an emotional side um, to the children. I think it's changed now, but when I was a child, I think that was pretty common. Um, so I think that my work now is so much focused on intimacy. Um, Perhaps it's because it's my response to
Yeah.
that kind of a growing up experience, and I'm craving that kind of intimacy, emotional um, expression.
Yeah. So in a way, you went totally opposite of how you
Yeah,
were raised.
exactly. So
That's great.
yes, and also I think Shanghai is such a phenomenon place, China in whole, because my generation of Chinese experienced this rapid change over the 20 years. So from this conservative environment, and over 10 years, you all of a sudden in this ultra modern society, and so many information come in, and it's almost hard to digest
Yeah.
all the information, and I think that part also um, somehow important in the process of thinking, um, in terms of what I wanted to express in my work.
Yeah. I bet it must be crazy.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
I bet. And kind of like in the same line. So like due to the presence of nudity in your work, in your photos, I think it's harder for these to be exhibited in China. Tell us about your relationship with censorship. In your native country, does that relationship affect your work at all?
Um, I have not had the opportunity to show a lot of my full frontal nude images,
Mhm.
and but that's not actually that's not only in China. There's quite a few countries.
Here, or in the States as well? Not
Not
as
so
much.
much in the States. I think in a few Asian countries, or
Okay.
certainly in Middle East. And but actually, in my entire body of work, um, the full frontal image is actually a very small portion
Yeah.
of my work. So and actually, so that's why I never really felt like I always been censored, because
Hmm.
I have this large amount of work
That you can
that
show.
I can just
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Exactly. And somehow this is a very interesting thing, is somehow people have an impression of my work is much naked than actually it is. they are very naked, but they actually the full front image actually is very, very, very small portion.
Yeah.
So, but in fact, I think I'm struggling now is to I'm struggling posing my work on social media. I think I censored more on that platform, but I will never let censorship affect my creative process. I think um, that's not for artists to think about, to dodge certain I don't know how to describe that.
No, but yeah, I
You know,
agree.
I
I think it
wouldn't.
shouldn't affect, the
No,
way
definitely
you,
not.
yeah,
Yeah,
you want
yeah.
to express yourself.
In fact, my newer work, my current project is very naked and very erotic, and it is almost my protest to censorship, because I don't think it's right to um, mute appreciation of body
Yeah.
and human nature, you
Yeah.
know. So no, I still work on whenever I feel most passionate about. I don't think about I don't think about whether my work will be shown in certain way or not,
Yeah.
and people um, have any weight against it. That's not my problem.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, and nudity, I think, like it can be a touchy subject, but like nudity doesn't necessarily mean pornographic, and I think
Hmm.
that's where sometimes it gets
Right.
lost
Hmm.
and people get confused.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I have two more questions. So, the Lilley owns camera from 2004, which is part of your series 13 Days in
Hmm.
2004. Tell us about a little bit about this series. How did it start? What was your inspiration? And then maybe you could talk a little bit about camera in specific.
This is a quite interesting project because I moved to New York City in late 2003. So 2004 is really the first full year I have lived in New York,
In New York.
and I was young, and that's 16 years ago. I was young and honestly quite confused and
Like all of
slightly,
us.
yes. I think I was also even grew up in Shanghai, equally a very big city, but I was still quite intimidated by the new environment,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so I don't know, I was just unsure about future. Um, so I just started to that was after my undergraduate school. So I was just starting to photograph myself whenever I feel like it. And then in late 2004, I went to graduate school. So I sort of just moved on to other projects. But I did shoot myself for 1 year. Um, and then I sort of just not thinking about this whole year of self portrait so much until about 3 years ago. Um, I thought maybe I should revisit. So
Mm-hmm.
I dig in the negative out and I scan all the negatives, and I was quite shocked to see um, a young self, to be honest, and not I wouldn't say unrecognizable, but I feel like I didn't know I was in that certain mental state, and all of a sudden I felt like this is an important year for me, and so I put together this 13 image portfolio series, and sort of to represent the 13 years I have um, buried this work.
Yeah.
So this is the old photograph becoming a new series, and I think is for me it's one of the most personal and meaningful work.
So in a way, the 2004 series has inspired a new series in which you're like revisiting 16
Yeah,
years
definitely.
later.
And
Oh,
I also I think it gave me a lot of insights about myself. And you know, when you're young and especially when you're in the state that you're sort of confused and frightening, and even as an artist, I'm doing self-portrait work, and I didn't recognize certain emotional detail in the picture, but looking at it a decade later, more than a decade later, um, with a much more mature mind, and you see things that you didn't know,
you didn't notice. Yeah.
and yes, and I think this I always um, love the concept that a portrait is a secret, and I think those self portraits are buried a lot of secrets.
That's
So
funny that you say that because there's also, you know, the paradox between these images being, you know, in museum spaces, which are very
mhm,
public. So it's like that private but
mhm,
super public, right? And it's, I love when, you know, when artists are able to do that and be successful at it, like you are. Um, so last question from me. What does the future hold? Any projects that we should be expecting besides the revisit to the 2004 self-portrait series?
I have a new series I'm working on right now. It's called Personal Perspective, and I actually slowly posting a few images on social media. Um, and I hope that I will start to show the work, and perhaps I will thinking about editing a few books of this new series and also my previous work. Um, what else? I also there's a documentary. Um, Hopefully, it will be released soon about my self portraits.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, it was jointly produced by American and a Chinese studio, and we have spent the last 3 years, 2.5 years to film the documentary film. So I don't know when it's gonna come out, but hopefully soon. So
Wonderful.
yeah, that's it's very exciting for me, but we'll see.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. Let us know when it's out.
Yeah,
We'll be on the lookout. Anybody has questions for Shen that you'd like me to ask him? Please type it in. Um, we'll hang out for a little bit
yeah.
and
This is an interesting
I
interview.
know, right? I'm
Yeah.
brand new to this whole
Hmm.
platform, so we'll
Right.
see how it goes. But I'm trying to get also this interview uploaded to our website, so then people that were not able to do it to make it today, they'll be able to
Perfect.
enjoy it later.
Hmm.
But I'll send you the link. Well, it seems like nobody has questions, so if you have any questions for Shen, I'll be happy to forward it to him. You know, oh, there you go. Ben is asking, what artists are you looking at these days? He says he misses you.
Um, a lot of artists actually. Um, mm, One artist I have to mention is actually she's I have known her for many years. It's a Chinese artist, Pixie Liao, and she does also self portraits with her boyfriend, and of a series called Experimental Relationships.
Mm,
Um,
I'm gonna write it down.
yeah, it's a fascinating body of work, and I know them both for 10 years, and I'm still looking at their work, new works constantly, and I will definitely. I'm sure a lot of people knows about her work, but I would like to introduce to viewers who didn't know.
Yeah, sounds amazing. We have another one here. Shen, what do you miss most about Shanghai, and when you were in the States, what do you miss most about your the city you were
Home.
born in? Yeah.
A lot of things, I think. For some my family, they are all in Shanghai. So, and I actually go back to Shanghai pretty often.
That's
Yeah, almost 4 or 5 times a year.
wow, that's quite a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot. And if I go back, I also do a lot of I shoot a lot of photography, shoot a lot of work there, and I certainly also miss the food a lot
I bet.
in Shanghai. But New York is not too bad. New York has a lot of great Chinese restaurants,
Oh,
and yeah, and it's my home. So I guess there's so many little things I constantly. I'm a very nostalgic person, especially as I'm getting older, um, and I constantly can try to remember things happened when I was younger,
yeah,
and I moved. We moved. Our family moved around in Shanghai quite a few times. So we have lived in many different neighborhoods in Shanghai, and Shanghai is enormous. So I have a lot of memories, different kind of memories of the city. So yeah, really hope to go back soon. So.
yeah, yeah. Well, now I gotta stay in place for a bit, huh? We have one more question. What movies, TV shows that you were watching during quarantine?
You know, I actually canceled my Netflix about 3 months ago
Good for
because
you.
because I find myself so distracted by
Tell me about it.
TV. Yeah, and I think last time I was binging some show on Netflix, it just took me, whole months to watch the entire 10 seasons of the show. So I canceled Netflix, so I don't have distraction of watching shows. But I have a new obsession is watching vlogs on YouTube.
What kind of vlogs?
Um, Mostly just travel and just everyday life in places I don't know, and I'm very curious person. I want to know what people are doing and how other people's life, especially in other countries, and so you can really find a lot of a great production on YouTube where just a single vlogger. I really admire them actually because it seems like those 5 6 minutes film it takes so much energy and effort to make, and yet it has so many interesting information, and especially for someone who travels a lot.
Yeah,
I'm sort of
missing
location
travel right
location
now.
scout. Exactly, it kind of also satisfy my craving for traveling by
Yeah,
watching these travel films.
that's
Yeah,
amazing idea. I might do it as that as well.
yeah, I'm location scouting for my next trips, basically.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any particular place that you found that you're like, I have to go?
Uh, hmm. I always wanted to go Georgia, the country.
The country.
Yeah, and I also love. There's also a lot of places in China I have not been to. So I'm watching a lot of travel vloggers and going to very deep rural um,
Areas.
areas in Asia. So yeah, those are kind of I like more rural. I like rural places. I think that's probably because I live in a big city. I'm from a big city, and uh, I'm so interested in nature, and you can definitely see that in my work a lot because I always have my self portrait. Not always, but a lot of time. have my self portraits in a nature environment,
Mm-hmm.
and I find it so. I just feel like that's something was missing in my life is in nature, um, and water. I always in water. This I feel like I'm using my work to explore things I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So um, and, and I feel very fortunate I can do that.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I'm with you. You know, I love cities and I'm from a big city. And but I do find myself craving nature and,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
just calmness, landscapes and
Hmm.
stuff. Well, wonderful. Thanks, Shan,
Thank
for
you.
making time, and so wonderful to meet you, you know, online, but face to face. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.